For a million years after the nuclear wars, humanity's first mutation emerged from the radioactive chaos, and countless kids started popping up with abilities that defied the very laws of physics. But the USSR, being the friendly neighbor they are, decided to dump them all on a remote island and train them to be the world's coldest super soldiers, brainwashing them to fight imaginary enemies. Among these unfortunate souls was Ayase, an ugly, worthless loser who got bullied for hiding his ridiculously overpowered abilities. Then came the day when a transfer student showed up. This arrogant jerk thought he found his next target and demanded to see the new kid's secret power, but Kyoya threatened to lop his arm off instead. After that showdown, a hot pink-haired girl waltzed into class, introduced herself as Nana, and claimed she could read minds. She also had to ask the guys to stop imagining bending her over. Awkward. The only seat left was next to Ayase, and after class Nana approached him wondering if he was bullied for being so incredibly ugly. She offered to be his friend, but Mugo decided to smash Ayase's face into the desk, warning Nana not to hang out with such a weak, talentless loser. This was the miserable life Ayase always knew. Since childhood, everyone shunned him for being a mutation, and even his father wished he hadn't brought a demon into the world. Determined, Ayase vowed never to use his powers again. Nevertheless, his father still shipped him off to the remote island where everyone mocked him for his lack of abilities. As Ayase trudged home, Nana spied on him from afar and began tailing him, saying there was a spot she wanted to check out with him. By the cliff, Nana asked why he was hiding his powers. He lied, saying it was for safety because there were rumors of humanity's enemies infiltrating the island. As he spoke, a gust of wind shoved Nana off the edge, snapping the rope beneath her. Meanwhile, Kyoya, playing detective, sensed something was fishy. After Ayase saved her, Nana thanked him, though he didn't realize it was all part of her cunning plan. Back at his dorm, she suggested he become the class representative, believing he was different from the others. He told her to shut it about leadership since it reminded him of his father. Curious, she asked why he despised his father, as his thoughts revealed he actually admired him. Ayase found it creepy how she knew everything about him without saying a word, and told her to leave him alone. That night, he pondered why his life had turned upside down so suddenly, especially since he had never touched or even spoken to a girl before. Just like all you jokers watching this video right now. At that moment, he heard a knock on his door and wondered why she was in the boys' dormitory. She handed him back the watch he left in the cafeteria, and he realized she had spent all night searching for it just to make him feel better. The next day, the duel for class representative was about to kick off, with the Ice Prince Seiya going head-to-head with Mugo. As the battle started, Seiya deftly blocked Mugo's attack and launched ice spears, nicking his face. Mugo, not one to back down, activated his fire talent, unleashing his final blaze, while Seiya countered with a freezing storm. Despite Mugo's attacks breaking through Seiya's defenses, Seiya managed to freeze Mugo's foot to the ground at the last moment. While everyone celebrated, Nana congratulated Seiya on becoming the leader, but Kyoya stared at them with gleaming eyes, noticing how she cheered for another guy. He figured she was just another floozy. Mugo, refusing to accept defeat, launched his Giga Inferno at them. Just before the flames could roast Nana, Issei, tired of living in fear and no longer caring what his jerk of a father thought, awakened his overpowered skill. As the fire dissipated, he apologized for not thanking her the night before and revealed he could neutralize other mutants' talents. Seeing his powers, Nana thought he was the strongest man alive, and everyone decided to make Issei their leader. As the sun set, he thanked Nana for helping him embrace his powers, realizing he could save lives instead of ending them. Nana then asked if his talent-neutralizing power could suppress her mind-reading ability, and wondered if touching her would make it happen. She grabbed his hand and began to tear up, saying it was the first time in her life that voices weren't screaming in her head. He thought her life must have been tough too. He wondered if she could guess what he was thinking, and she smiled, saying she could. She always knew he was being bullied because he would pretend to read a book without turning the pages, and called him kind because of the cat scratch on his neck. Moreover, the watch on his hand clued her into his relationship with his father. It must have been a gift from someone who cared about him. Since he forgot it, she knew he had some resentment against the giver, confirming his hatred for his father by provoking him the previous night. At that moment he realized she was one of the enemies, but she claimed he was the real enemy of humanity, asking him to erase his existence as she read he had killed over 1 million people. The next day she used the phone given to her by the agency, which contained the number of murders each mutated child committed and her instructions to kill them all during training. Mugo wondered why Issei vanished as soon as he became the leader, but Nana pretended she had no clue. Then a fool named Yohei nearly fell into the lake screaming that he couldn't swim. Seiya descended to freeze the entire pond, and Nana found it disgusting that kids like him had the power to destroy the world, cementing her resolve to kill them all. While they ate lunch, Mugo started picking on another victim, but before he could land a punch, time twisted and he somehow ended up on the floor. Yohei reminded him that he despised nothing more than people making noise during his mealtime. Seeing Yohei's powers, Seiya revealed that he could freeze time. But Nana noticed something odd about the victim's tie, so while eating lunch she joined Yohei and began choking on his meat. He reminded her that he hated noisy people, but she retorted that he was swallowing his own meat louder than her. Eyeing the table, she pretended to want his pickle in her mouth and knocked over his cup of water, but time warped again, returning it to its original spot. Breathing heavily, Yohei revealed his ability to freeze time, but Nana knew he was lying and asked him what his power really was. Realizing she could read his mind, he admitted that he could change the past. Nana had already guessed this, since he wouldn't have bothered to clean every water droplet or fix his classmate's tie after grabbing him. Yohei was the worst mutation for her to deal with, and at that moment Kyoya appeared, asking Yohei to go back in time to find out what happened to Issei. This was her worst fear come true, but she wondered what Kyoya meant by disappearance, since she thought Issei was just sick. Kyoya disagreed, noting their rooms were next to each other and Issei hadn't responded when he knocked on his door. He recalled seeing Issei leave school with Nana just before he vanished, so he asked her where they went and what they did. As she tried to concoct an escape plan, she knew her story would unravel, especially if Kyoya had an investigative talent. She tried changing the subject by asking why he was grabbing her hair. He said he felt compelled to hold onto loose ends. Nana wondered if he just called her loose, but tried to deflect suspicion, suggesting that the enemies of humanity might have killed Issei. She glanced at Kyoya, convinced he couldn't be one of them. After all, she could read minds, and questioned why he cared about Issei even though he kept his distance from everyone. Kyoya smiled before leaving. Yohei found it odd how Kyoya knew they'd be there, and suggested they investigate if he was the one who killed Issei. Though Nana feigned happiness, she knew the truth would soon come out. In front of the boys' dorm, Yohei went back in time and returned a few seconds later, saying he couldn't see Issei returning home before collapsing. He revealed that the limitation of his talent was how weak it made him. Nana wondered how she would kill him, since he could just return to the past and kill her instead. She asked him how far back he could go, and when he said 24 hours was his limit, she thought something else was off, because he could have kept following Issei until he found out what happened. As he kept journeying to the past, Nana knew he was inching closer to uncovering the truth. He thought her mind-reading ability was a hassle, since she noticed him whenever he traveled back in time. Hearing this, she realized that being spotted was sending him back to the present. Although he admitted she was correct, she still didn't know how to eliminate him before he found out the truth. She tried to convince him to wait until tomorrow, but he questioned why she was trying to stop him from discovering what happened to her friend. As she hesitated, he asked if she was the one who killed Issei. When they reached the cliff and he traveled back in time, she knew that all she could do was trust herself. Upon returning, he realized they were truly close friends by the way they held hands. She smiled but understood that her memories had been overwritten. Just before killing Issei, she was highly observant of her surroundings and noticed Yohei. She waited to make sure he was gone before pushing Issei off. Thinking she was innocent, Yohei apologized for doubting her and decided to call it a day. That night, Nana was in the shed looking for shovels before knocking on Yohei's door in the middle of the night. As they sprinted through the forest, he asked why she hid the truth. She claimed she didn't trust him yet and pointed to where Issei was attacked. She revealed that after holding hands, they were chased by a monster to this part of the woods, where the monster ate Issei, leaving nothing behind. She was too frightened to do anything, but thought Yohei might be able to save him since this was where he was eaten. He decided to try to find a way to change the past, but as soon as he went back in time, he never returned. Once she was safe, she began digging up the dirt, uncovering the frozen pond beneath. Last night, the lake wasn't frozen yet, and knowing he couldn't swim along with how exhausted time traveling made him, she knew he would drown immediately. On top of that, no one would notice his body the next day since Seiya would freeze the lake. This meticulous planning was all she needed to stay undetected from Kyoya's investigations. That same night, Kyoya was back at the cliff where Issei died and decided to dive into the ocean. The next morning, as Mugo and Seiya wondered how Yohei mysteriously vanished, Nana realized they might start suspecting a serial killer among them. Just then, Seiya tried cornering Nana to use his best Discord pickup line, asking if she's a rope, because he'd love to hang with her. Nana told him his girlfriend might not be happy about it, and when Seiya wondered how she knew they were dating, she reminded him that she could read minds. But Kyoya appeared then, saying it was obvious since they shared an umbrella and were both wet on one side. Realizing he was trying to derail her plans and noticing the seaweed on his head, Nana asked if he would eat lunch with her. However, she wouldn't give up and kept following him all day. After he returned to the dormitory, Nana decided to visit his shack and discovered he was actually caring for a stray cat. She figured he must be more clever than he looked, so she decided to meet him again, trying another approach to get to know him. However, this time Kyoya asked her to be his friend, making her wonder if he suspected her. As he invited her into his room, she realized he was the classic useless Reddit Discord mod who only showered once a month, and his room was more revolting than your worthless face. As they started playing a video game, Kyoya mentioned he actually wanted to make new friends and asked for her advice on getting closer to people. After all, she had managed to befriend Ise and Yohei within a few days on the island. She suggested he stop looking like a creepy jerk while wondering why she couldn't figure out what his talent was. When she decided to ask if he was investigating Ise's disappearance, Kyoya revealed that his sister went missing after being sent to the island, and he hoped that discovering Ise's murderer would bring him closer to finding her. That evening, as Nana was about to leave, Kyoya showed her Ise's watch and asked if she had ever seen it. Before Nana could concoct a lie, Kyoya suggested they head to the cliff. After arriving, he asked if she had been with Ise on the night he went missing. He had already deduced that Ise must have owned the watch, having found it at the bottom of the cliff. He figured Ise must have thrown it with his last bit of strength so someone could find it, fearing she would be exposed. Nana began saying Ise must have decided to hug the ground, but Kyoya didn't buy her pathetic lie, suggesting instead that Ise could have been pushed. When Nana speculated that enemies of humanity might have killed him, Kyoya dismissed the idea, pointing out that monsters wouldn't push him off a cliff when they could just eat him. Hearing this, Nana realized Kyoya was much smarter than the two other idiots she had already killed. Kyoya then said he would report Ise's death to the incompetent school officials. Fearing the truth would come out, Nana tried to argue that the news would cause a panic among the students, but when she saw Kyoya's mind was made up, she decided to ask about his talent, thinking she could kill him once she discovered it. However, Kyoya didn't fall for it and told her to read his mind if she was really a psychic. That night in her room, as Nana made her report to the committee, she remembered her earlier request to them. Before heading to the island, she had asked for information on all the teenagers' abilities, claiming it would help her create a better plan to eliminate them. However, the committee told her that the talents often evolved during puberty and that they could awaken new powers regardless of the original data. As Nana realized that the abilities of the talented often have limitations, she figured she needed to uncover the limit to Kyoya's own power. The next day, after informing the teacher that Ise might be dead, Kyoya decided to reveal his broken watch. The teacher was shocked by this news, making Nana realize that the school staff were completely clueless and had no idea what the committee's true goals were. As they were about to leave, Nana mentioned that Ise's cat was missing and speculated it might be starving. Her aim was to lure Kyoya back to the shack, but as she hurried off, he wondered why she couldn't even fake concern over Ise's disappearance. By sunset, Kyoya decided to head back to the shack, contemplating whether these so-called enemies of humanity even existed. Meanwhile, Nana thought no one knew the island's secret. The talented believed they were brought here to fight these enemies, so it never crossed their minds that a talentless person was among them, killing them off. She felt she had the upper hand. However, Kyoya was certain a human was behind the disappearances and believed he had the upper hand if their goal was to kill them. Upon entering the shack, he noticed the cat was nowhere to be found, but decided to warm up some milk for it anyway. At the same time, Nana was pleased her plan was going smoothly, having deduced that Kyoya had no sense of smell. Evident from the fact that his room always reeked like an anime convention and he needed to put expiration dates on his vegetables instead of just sniffing them. As he lit the stove, it exploded due to a gas leak. While waiting to see if his talent would be revealed, she noticed he was badly burned and thought he was finally dead. Pretending to call for help, she tried to run away, but he grabbed her ankle, causing her to fall. He questioned why she was the first to arrive and how she knew to scream his name despite his body being unrecognizable from the burns. But then she noticed his wounds were already healing. He apologized for doubting her, believing his dear friend would never try to kill him, but wondered why she looked like she'd seen a ghost. After all, she could supposedly read minds, but was somehow surprised to learn he was immortal. So he decided to share another secret since they were friends. He was born without a sense of smell, but assured her it wasn't his talent's weakness. However, as all talents come with a price, he told her he would project his weakness to the forefront of his mind, so if she could really read minds, she would know what it was. Pretending to have read his mind, she promised to keep his secret safe. But as he walked away, she realized she had to find out his weakness at any cost. The next day at school, Mugo accused Kyoya of intentionally blowing up the shack, but Kyoya claimed a killer tried to eliminate him, the same one who killed Ise and Yohi. Seiya thought his explanation made sense and suggested that a new leader should be chosen considering Ise was still missing. Realizing her chance, Nana figured she could easily divert Kyoya's suspicion if she managed to become the leader. Just then, two unattractive losers announced they found a love letter in Michiru's locker. As one began reading it, Nana thought they were the most useless lowlifes she'd ever seen, especially since they had hidden the word idiot in the letter. Suddenly, Michiru noticed Nana's wound and decided to lick it. In that moment, Nana realized her wound had healed, but the other girls warned Michiru to use her ability sparingly as it drained her lifespan. Checking her data, Nana discovered Michiru had killed over 150,000 civilians, deciding she needed to eliminate her like the others. Stepping outside, she found Kyoya was stalking her, but he eventually left. Later that day, while Michiru waited for her secret admirer, Nana appeared, revealing that the admirer never existed, and that the ugly girls had written the letter to mock her. With their scheme exposed, the girls fled. That night, Nana was pleased to have uncovered Michiru's full ability, realizing she could only heal with her tongue. Thinking she could easily stab Michiru in the back as her tongue wouldn't reach there, Nana tried to leave for her room but found Kyoya waiting outside. When she asked why a Discord mod was lurking, Kyoya claimed he was protecting her from the killer. Knowing he was trying to restrain her to see if the killings stopped, she returned to her room immediately. A few minutes later, Kyoya noticed she had cranked up the music. Looking through her window, he saw her running into the other dormitory. Soon after, she entered Michiru's room, screaming that an enemy of humanity was at the window. Hearing Michiru's scream, Kyoya ran to her room thinking Nana had found another victim. Upon entering, he found Nana injured with Michiru trying to lick her wound, wondering how she got hurt. The ugly, deceitful liar claimed she overheard a killer's thoughts and rushed to save Michiru from getting ice-guyed. Unconvinced, Kyoya questioned why no one saw the killer and why Nana didn't ask for his help, knowing he's immortal. Proud of her plan, Nana thought she couldn't possibly be considered a suspect, but Kyoya felt her stories didn't add up. The next day, he asked her to explain what happened, but she repeated the same lies, making him think her stories were fake. He wondered why she jumped out of her window and suspected she intentionally wounded herself in Michiru's room, knowing Michiru could heal injuries. Just then, the other students arrived and Mugo and Seiya began fighting over who should be class leader again. Desperate to win them over, Nana cried, claiming it was her fault Ise was dead, since she didn't use her psychic ability to find the enemy faster. With all the underdogs feeling sympathetic towards her, Michiru proposed that they make her their new leader, mentioning that she saved her from being killed. So all the simpletons agreed to accept her, believing that her talent could help them identify the enemies of humanity before they struck. However, Kyoya noticed the stitching on her back and found it suspicious. After school, Nana instructed Michiru to document everyone's talent, claiming that she needed it for an emergency. The gullible girl bought into her story and decided to complete the task. Just then, Kyoya approached her and started apologizing for doubting her. But as he was about to leave, he began to question why a monster would stab her with a needle-like weapon, especially since they were thought to have claws. Nonetheless, he wished her luck, and Nana realized he was just pretending to trust her. That night, she prepared poison needles, intending to eliminate everyone simultaneously. But upon arriving at the dormitory, a new student appeared asking to speak with her. His name was Hatadara, and he claimed his talent was to foresee the future. He showed her a photograph and asked why she planned to kill him. He had taken the picture from the future, but with Nana too shocked to respond, he suggested they have dinner together. Soon he started kicking the cafeteria door and didn't stop until they were let in. After placing an order, he told her that his psychic photographs always come true. Showing another photograph, he predicted that she would be covered in spaghetti. At that moment, the server arrived with Nana's order, but she immediately rejected it, hoping to change the future. However, as the server tried to leave, she slipped, and the spaghetti ended up landing on Nana's face. Feeling proud of his ability, Hatadara told her she couldn't possibly alter the future and demanded to know why she intended to kill him. When Nana refused to answer, he revealed another photograph of Issei's fall from the cliff, saying his ability manifested the day she transferred to their school, and insisted on knowing why she killed him. At that point, Nana realized that he didn't actually plan to reveal the truth to the others, but was just trying to manipulate her into doing whatever he wanted. So when she agreed to follow his orders, the unattractive loner asked her to become his girlfriend, as he had been a lonely virgin his whole life. In his dormitory, he commanded her to become his personal masseuse, ordering her to massage every inch of his body. To understand the extent of his power, she wondered if he had ever managed to alter the outcome of his visions. But he insisted it was impossible. Fortunately, he wasn't dead in the photograph, and since he believed it predicted his death at 10 p.m. the following night, he was convinced that every attempt to kill him would fail. With his vision providing a guaranteed glimpse of the future, Hatadara was confident he would survive until it came true. At the same moment, Nana pondered whether she could end his life right then and there, but she feared that his visions might indeed be unchangeable. However, when she tried to leave, Hatadara commanded her to stay, claiming she was now his girlfriend and they should start developing a relationship like any other couple. But as he passed out, Nana noticed his camera and decided to stay awake all night while he slept. Eventually, she saw new photographs being printed, and upon discovering that these were actually snapshots of his dreams, Nana realized that he had no control over which parts of the future he saw. This made her feel she had the upper hand, as he couldn't predict everything. However, there was one photo she couldn't let anyone see, so she replaced it with a fake one and knew she had to destroy the others before they were found. In the morning, when the loser woke up, he began explaining that he always had 5 visions each night, but mentioned he only found 4 photographs next to his pillow. He assumed she must have hidden the last one and decided to search through her belongings. Upon finding it, he realized it depicted Nana's execution and felt pleased at the prospect of killing her. He instructed her to meet him in the shed that night, hoping to reenact the scene. After he left, Nana decided to reset his watch, hoping to throw off his sense of time. That night, she arrived at the shed first, but her needles slipped under a table. When the unattractive loser entered, he felt confident he would end Nana's life. As she attempted to strangle him, he managed to remove the rope and knocked her to the floor. Aiming to finish her off, he revealed that he had already reset his watch and that she couldn't possibly kill him, since his latest vision predicted he would kill her at 10 p.m. With Nana subdued, the fool believed it was over. But as he tried to touch her, she caught his hand, paralyzing him instantly. She had managed to pierce him with her poisonous needle and remarked that his photographs did indeed predict the future. Hatadara wondered where it all went wrong. Nana told him that the last photograph was a fake and that she had intentionally lured him there, knowing he would lower his guard and become overconfident. At that moment, she decided to reveal the real photograph. Worst part of her entire plan, as Kyoya and Michiru entered at the same time. As they questioned what had happened, Nana screamed at Michiru to save Hatadara, claiming he had an accident. However, Kyoya wasn't convinced by her fake tears and revealed her photograph, stating they found it in Hatadara's room. When he demanded to know why she was with him, Nana claimed that he had taken inappropriate photos of her in the bathtub and forced her to be his girlfriend. Kyoya then wondered if she had tried to kill him to regain her freedom. However, she argued that it couldn't have been her, as his body had no external injuries, and mentioned she thought she saw the enemies of humanity. But when Kyoya pondered how these enemies could eliminate people without leaving a scratch, Michiru recalled that they had the ability to cast curses to kill their victims. Even so, Kyoya thought these enemies of humanity had overpowered abilities, but Nana grinned at him, knowing they were the ones who could time travel, live forever, and even predict the future. As she began to leave, Kyoya thought her suspicious face was definitely fishy, but Nana's only goal was to retrieve the remaining photographs from Hatara's room. Before long, she started rummaging around the room, relieved that none of the photos had been discovered. But as Kyoya appeared behind her like an uninvited ghost, she swiftly slipped them into her bag. When he asked why she returned to this room, she claimed she was gathering her belongings, but he began to question why she was still alive when the psychic photograph had already forecasted her death. To top it off, he thought the photo looked staged since the rope was double-wrapped. In real murder cases, the rope is usually wrapped once as the victim struggles to escape while the killer tries to secure it, making it nearly impossible to double-wrap. Handing the photo back to her, he mused about why she would take a photo of herself, but then it hit him. She wanted Hatara to let his guard down, thinking fate was on his side. After she left, he thought something fishy must have gone down between them, but regretted not arriving sooner to search the room for clues. Back in Nana's room, when she decided to check the photos again, she found one was missing and realized it must be on Hatara's body. Meanwhile, Michiru was trying to heal him with her ability, but after realizing Hatara's soul had already booked a one-way ticket to Nirvana, she remembered that her powers couldn't revive the dead. It was the image of Issei's fall from the cliff, but before her sluggish brain could piece it together, Nana showed up, curious about what she was holding. With the clueless girl too slow to catch on, she asked Nana about the photo, so Nana took it, saying it seemed Hatara never had the power to see the future. Instead, she claimed that every photo he took was just a snapshot of his dreams, and asked her to keep this revelation a secret. Realizing they were now on the same wavelength, Michiru promised she would keep quiet. A few days later, as all the students gathered for Hatara's funeral, Kyoya began questioning why the school officials weren't investigating his death, but even the teacher was clueless. As Kyoya decided to take the lead, he suggested that Hatara must have been murdered. Nana, desperate to protect her secrets, tried to stop him, saying it would cause a panic, but he insisted he needed to perform an autopsy on the body. Hoping to throw him off, the schemer asked Kyoya to chat outside, wondering why he wouldn't just accept that Hatara was taken out by an enemy of humanity. Kyoya found it too convenient for him to die while attacking her, especially since she was suspiciously close by when his shed went boom. However, she tried to shift the blame away from herself, asking why a killer would even try to kill Hatara if he was supposedly immortal. Hearing this, Kyoya realized she had a point. After all, if she could read minds, Hatara would logically be her last target. Unwittingly, he had fallen into her trap as she played on the premise that only the talented were allowed on this island. Nonetheless, Kyoya headed back to the funeral home, determined to carry out the autopsy. But as he opened the coffin, the body suddenly sat up on its own and a kid stepped forward. The boy introduced himself as Shinji and announced that he could make the dead confess the truth about their demise. With his necromancy power, he claimed he could even make the dead walk again. Hearing this, everyone wondered if they were witnessing some sort of horror movie, but a clueless girl piped up, saying Shinji was just an ordinary guy. However, Shinji began explaining that he could see through Hatara's eyes if he wanted to, and could even draw out memories of his final moments. In a last-ditch effort, Nana started yelling that Hatara's soul would be violated, and that she could hear him screaming from beyond the grave. The thought made all the students' knees wobble like jelly, and as Kyoya figured they'd all start treating him like the bad guy, he decided to call it quits. Right on cue, Shinji shoved him back into the coffin, but Nana had already marked him as her next big fish. So the next morning during class, she decided to casually ask where Shinji hides out during the day. As Yuka started to spill that he was always holed up in his room, Nana had an aha moment, realizing they were probably an item, and thought she might as well knock both of them off in one go. That evening, she played ninja, spying on them from behind a tree. But surprise, surprise, Kyoya popped up and asked what she was up to. Nana, not missing a beat, claimed she was just out for a midnight stroll. Kyoya, knowing she couldn't lie her way out of a paper bag, started suspecting that Shinji might be her next victim. Just then, the dynamic duo noticed their little audience. As Shinji made a move to leave, Kyoya spotted his bandaged arm and wondered what kind of barbecue he had been to. Yuki, not missing a chance to show off, explained that Shinji got all crispy while trying to save a bunch of people from a fire and only made it out because she pulled him to safety. The next day, Nana decided to fake being sick and took a detour to the infirmary, where Michiru fussed over her like a mother hen. As soon as Michiru left, Nana realized she could play hooky by slipping out the window to the boys' dormitory and sneak back before anyone caught on. With Kyoya patrolling the island like a hawk every night, she figured there was no time like the present. She bolted, immediately reading up on Shinji's resume of over 300,000 kills. After creeping into his room, she jabbed him with her trusty needle, letting him know that Yuka would be joining him in the afterlife real soon. But as she made a break for it back to the infirmary, a cat stuck in the gutter caught her eye. Meanwhile, Kyoya and Michiru had arrived at the infirmary, and when he yanked the curtain back, they both realized Nana had pulled a Houdini. Right then, Nana started pounding on the window, yelling that she found a stray cat. So after they arrived at the scene, she asked Yuka to lift the grate, hoping to get a read on how strong she really was. But Yuka, with a sniffle and a sneeze, told her that cats set off her allergies, making it impossible to use her powers. That night, while Yuka was counting sheep, Nana snuck into her room, ready to finish her off just like she did Shinji. But out of nowhere, a shadow knocked her flat on her back, and she realized she was in deep trouble. With a grip like a vice, she realized Shinji was somehow still kicking, and that while he had super strength, Yuka was the real puppet master, a necromancer. In that instant, Nana pieced it all together. Shinji had been dead as a doornail for a long time, and Yuka had been the one pulling his strings all along. As Yuka picked up the needle, she started spilling the beans, saying that Shinji actually bit the dust in the fire. But she couldn't imagine a life without him, so she decided she wasn't going to let him kick the bucket. When Shinji started throwing out the idea that they should take her out right away, Yuka toyed with the thought of giving her a get-out-of-jail-free card instead. But Nana quickly caught on that Yuka was an even bigger nutcase than herself. Right then, Shinji stumbled upon the rest of her needles, so Yuka began threatening to spill all her dirty secrets to the whole class. But in that moment, Nana decided to drop a bombshell, revealing that she was the one who took out everyone. Sure, she was a killer, but at least she wasn't playing with dead bodies like they were action figures. Even though Yuka knew the ugly truth, Nana started spinning a tale that the others would totally buy her innocence once she told them Yuka nabbed her while she was out for a midnight stroll. But when Yuka tried to say that Shinji was a witness to her little escapade, Nana clapped back, telling her she'd spill the beans, that Shinji's just a walking corpse and that Yuka's been pulling the strings all along. With Yuka starting to hesitate, Nana pitched the idea that they keep each other's skeletons in the closet, and on top of that promised to reveal Shinji's inner thoughts. Intrigued by the deal, Yuka decided to let her go. But Nana knew she had pulled a fast one, pretending to read Shinji's mind. She told Yuka that Shinji's soul wanted to off Nana, but then bolted out of there as Shinji nodded, thinking she made a good point. He started pushing the idea of killing her, adding that Yuka could just reanimate her once she was dead and read his soul whenever she felt like it. Thinking it was the most brilliant idea ever, Yuka agreed that they should start the hunt right away. But Nana was just relieved that she had managed to bait them outside. As Shinji spotted her, Nana took off running. By the time Yuka and Shinji reached the forest, Nana started taunting Yuka, asking if she animates Shinji's body with that tacky necklace of hers. So Yuka decided to spill that she could only bring a body back to life if she got her hands on something they owned. When Yuka shined her flashlight into the bushes, she realized Nana wasn't there. But just as Nana pounced from behind to grab the necklace, Shinji appeared out of nowhere to strike her. Nana quickly shoved Yuka aside and vanished into the darkness. She began plotting how to swipe that necklace, noticing she was being tailed, but couldn't figure out how Yuka was tracking her in the pitch-black night. Just then, a zombie stumbled out in front of her, trying to nab her, but she managed to slip away. However, more zombies started popping up left and right, so Yuka casually mentioned she'd been busy animating all the other corpses buried on the island. Thankfully, Nana managed to give them the slip, but after spotting another zombie, she kicked it into high gear. Eventually, she stumbled upon a cottage and realized the door could only be locked from the outside. So deciding to test Yuka's Achilles heel, she started banging on the door, trying to seal herself inside. But as Yuka and her undead crew arrived, Nana darted inside in a flash. However, as Yuka began to suspect it was a trap to split her up from Shinji, she decided to wake up the dead bodies inside the cottage, and they popped up behind Nana in no time. Thankfully, the sun started to rise, and as all the zombies dropped like flies, Nana realized that Yuka's kryptonite was that she could only animate the dead at night. Looking to lock her in good and tight, Yuka decided to bolt the door, casually mentioning she'd be back by sunset. But Nana nearly gave her a free facial piercing with her knife. In class, Kyoya asked Yuka if she'd seen Nana, but Yuka played it cool, insisting she didn't lock her up in some creepy cottage or anything like that. Meanwhile, Nana had cleverly dressed up one of the zombies to look like her, and when night fell, Yuka showed up at the cottage with her zombie entourage. But when she swung the door open, they found no trace of Nana until Yuka spotted what looked like her lifeless body on the floor. However, as she lifted the head, she realized she'd been duped, and yelled at her zombie minions to comb the forest, but they couldn't find a single clue. Come morning, Yuka was heading back with her fake corpse in tow, but just as she reached the dormitory, Nana popped up behind her and knocked her flat on the ground. Nana then pulled out a piece of paper from her pocket and revealed that the necklace wasn't what Yuka used to control Shinji. Instead, it was the paper she was protecting the night before. She then told Yuka to follow her, making sure no one else was watching. Once they arrived at the cliff, Yuka started wondering if Nana had some secret talent for escaping the cottage. But Nana explained she just walked out the front door, having pretended to seal herself inside before Yuka showed up. She had cleverly unscrewed the hinge and taped it back up, making it look like she was trapped when she really wasn't. When Yuka asked why she let herself get sealed, and Nana revealed she wanted to see if Yuka could control her zombies during the day. Nana had meticulously planned her move and waited to strike until all the zombies were out cold. Realizing she was in deep trouble, Yuka started begging for mercy, but asked Nana to return Shinji's keepsake to her. Nana agreed but demanded her needles back first. Yuka handed them over in a hurry, but soon realized that Nana had already tossed the piece of paper into the water. This revelation drove Yuka to the edge, and Nana began questioning if Yuka's story had even a shred of truth. Yuka, panicking, admitted she had no real memories of Shinji, and Nana quickly figured out that her entire tale was bogus. Nana then asked why she only had a torn piece of paper as Shinji's relic instead of something more meaningful. At that moment, Yuka started to crack, fearing her secrets were unraveling. She confessed that she had actually started the fire to ruin Shinji's date with his real love. The real Shinji had despised her, but she was obsessed with him and decided to reanimate him after causing his death. As Yuka rambled on, Nana used her needle to put an end to her pitiful existence. But after Yuka was gone, Nana wondered why she didn't just toss that piece of paper away right from the start. After all, Yuka had taken out over 500,000 people, and Nana couldn't help but wonder if some twisted part of her wanted to give Yuka a break by tossing away that paper. But without dawdling, she shoved Yuka's body into the water and noticed Shinji's corpse was now starting to resemble rotten sushi. Heading back to the forest, Nana began second-guessing herself, wondering if maybe she should have let Yuka live and used her powers to unravel the mystery of the other corpses. But she decided to ditch that thought and stick to her mission. Eventually, she stumbled upon Habu skulking in the bushes, and the useless idiot nearly peed her pants. When Nana asked what she was doing in the bushes, Habu mumbled something about looking for snakes because their venom helps her retain the poison fluids inside her. Seeing that Habu was all by her lonesome, Nana casually asked where her ugly sidekick was, and Habu confessed they'd been separated, even showing her the last text they exchanged. That was all the info Nana needed. Crafting a quick plan, she told Habu her friend was waiting to patch things up in the bushes. But the moment Habu turned to check, Nana poked her with a needle, paralyzing her instantly. With Habu immobilized, Nana demanded she spill her phone password, offering a fake antidote in return. Believing Nana's dirty lie, Habu screeched her password immediately, but when Nana opened her hand, Habu realized there was never an antidote. At that moment, Habu's soul took a one-way ticket out of her body, so Nana dragged her to the other zombies, planning to frame her as the new murder suspect. A few minutes later, Nana slipped into Kaori's room and stealthily swapped out her contact lenses. However, when she tried to open the window, she found it was jammed and could only be opened on one side, but shrugged it off, thinking her plan would work out anyway. With everything in place, she decided to make a trip to the school. When Kyoya asked if she'd run into Yuka and Shinji, she put on her best Oscar-worthy performance, claiming they were dead and insisting she was as innocent as a lamb. Before long, she led the boys into the forest, spilling the beans that Yuka was actually the necromancer and had killed Shinji years ago to turn him into her undead boyfriend. When they reached the cliff and saw Shinji's decomposing body, Nana spun a tale about how she'd convinced Yuka that her twisted actions were wrong, only for Yuka to take the fast route out by hugging the ocean. Right then, she asked Mugu to torch the bodies, claiming their souls were screaming in her mind. Everyone got thoroughly creeped out, so Mugu decided to light them up, but Kyoya still smelled something fishy, suspecting Nana for being at the crime scene once again, but Nana wasn't finished yet. She led them to the other zombies, suggesting Mugu burn them too before they started stinking up the island. Back at the dormitory, Seiya suggested they warn the others about the killer, but the useless, ugly liar Nana quickly shut that down, saying it would just make things worse. However, Kyoya wasn't buying what she was selling and demanded to know why she was always MIA whenever someone got offed, and what exactly she was up to while everyone else was in class. At that moment, a girl let out a blood-curdling scream inside the dormitory, sending everyone scrambling to check it out. By the time they arrived, they found yet another girl had bitten the dust, and Kyoya quickly deduced she'd been dead for a few hours, as he ordered the boys to grab the survival kit. He barked at Nana to stay where he could see her, threatening to chop off her hands if she so much as twitched. Kaoya then got down to business, examining the body, and soon noticed that Kaori was in the middle of putting on her contact lenses when she kicked the bucket. Something didn't sit right with him, so he decided to take a sip of Kaori's mysterious white liquid. Instantly, he began choking on the poison and gasped that it was burning hot. So Nana threw the window open, but when Kaoya survived the ordeal, she realized that while he might be immune to poison, it sure wasn't a walk in the park for him. Kaoya, still recovering, pointed out that Kaori's lens case had been tampered with, poisoned, in fact, and concluded that someone had set her up. With Nana having skipped classes, it made sense to him that she could have snuck into the room before Kaori got back. Just then, he tried to open the window himself, but when it wouldn't budge, Michiru chimed in, insisting Nana was a sweet angel who'd never harm a fly. As they were about to leave, Nana, ever the curious one, asked about Habu's superpower, considering she was closest to the deceased. When Michiru spilled the beans that Habu could produce poisonous body fluids, Kaoya's wheels started turning, and he suggested they find Habu right away. However, when they came back a few hours later, they found that Habu had vanished into thin air. Nana, always ready to weave a tale, suggested that she'd heard some monstrous thoughts lurking in the forest and theorized that Habu had been attacked by humanity's enemy. But Kaoya, not buying her tall tales, insisted the killer was definitely human. As he continued his search of the room, he asked Nana if she'd been pals with Kaori, but when the fibbing fool claimed they weren't friends, she knew she just tripped over her own lies. Kaoya had intentionally drunk from the poison lens case, and when Nana had opened the right window, it tipped him off that she'd been there before, instantly making her a prime suspect. He started laying out his theory that Nana must have visited the room earlier, while the clueless moron insisted Nana was innocent and even claimed to have found Kaori's cell phone, which supposedly pinned Habu as the culprit. Michiru jumped in, saying Habu had sent a final text while they were searching the island, but Kaoya wasn't buying it. He suspected Nana had sent the text while they were distracted, and no amount of her wild stories was going to convince him of her innocence. He sternly warned Michiru to steer clear of Nana, declaring her the real killer. At that moment, the rest of the gang arrived, and Kaoya, seeing his chance to address the crowd, laid it all out. Nana must have offed Habu before showing up at school, playing the innocent act. He kept a close watch on her the whole time and figured she suggested burning the bodies just to hide the fact that Habu was already dead. Plus, she'd stolen Habu's phone and probably sent the text to lure Kaori into putting on the deadly lenses. Desperate to save her lying hide, Nana insisted she couldn't have possibly sent any texts, but Kaoya wasn't buying it. He pointed out that she could have easily read Habu's thoughts and swiped her phone password, leaving Nana's excuses hanging by a thread. Kaoya wasn't done yet. As he got closer, he started to wonder if she still had Habu's cell phone, especially since he noticed she was hiding something in her clothes. Deciding to search her pockets, he found them empty, but Michiru, ever the loyal cheerleader, insisted Nana wasn't the killer. Little did they know Nana had actually stashed the phone with a zombie, hoping that its decaying fingers would eventually hit send. And miraculously, her risky plan worked out. Michiru then demanded Kaoya apologize, claiming his accusations had scarred her fragile soul. Feeling a twinge of guilt, Kaoya reluctantly apologized for suspecting her. Sensing her moment, Nana chimed in with some spiritual nonsense about Habu's soul yearning for peace and urged everyone to stop doubting each other. Incredibly, the gullible fools lapped it all up, and Nana suggested they start documenting everything that happened for posterity. To seal the deal, she offered to shake Kaoya's hand, but he wasn't entirely convinced by her sudden turn to diplomacy. That night, while pretending to be the dorm's brave protector, Michiru showed up and started gushing about how Nana was a true hero. Michiru, ever helpful, offered to take over dorm duty, but Nana was beginning to question whether she was playing her cards right. As she feigned sleep, Michiru suddenly asked why she couldn't read her thoughts, then, out of nowhere, pressed a box cutter to Nana's throat. Demanding to know Nana's real power, Nana quickly blurted out that she could ooze poisonous fluids, but Michiru wasn't buying any more of her reheated lies. Just as Michiru got momentarily distracted, Nana grabbed her hand, making the box cutter clatter to the floor. But Michiru, already anticipating this move, smugly suggested that Nana must have been trained as a secret agent. At that moment, two other girls appeared outside, so Michiru quickly switched gears, pretending they were just having a casual chat before heading inside. The next day at school, Michiru showed up again, this time bearing a gift for Nana, challenging her to guess what was inside. Sensing a trap, Nana joked that her telepathic powers were taking a coffee break, but Michiru ominously promised to return. Nana realized Michiru was trying to expose her fake abilities, but she wasn't sure how to outmaneuver her. Later at lunch, Kyoya walked into the classroom to find all the students crowding around Nana as Michiru continued to pressure her to guess what was inside the mysterious box. Fearing she'd be found out, Nana took a wild stab and guessed it was a greeting card, but Michiru revealed it was actually a bath set. Cunning Nana had a backup plan ready and claimed she could read the friendly message in Michiru's thoughts. Just then, Kyoya announced that a love note addressed to Nana was stuck on Michiru's back. The other students all acknowledged love note and started believing that Nana's mind-reading abilities might actually be legit. They figured she must have read their thoughts to figure out the note was there. Michiru decided to play along, declaring that Nana was the real deal. But Kyoya, our low-budget Sherlock, started wondering who the heck stuck that note in the first place. Later, as the sun set and Nana and Michiru stood on the cliff, Nana began grilling Michiru about where she was hiding the real Michiru. She'd noticed that Michiru was covering up some bruises with tape and figured this Michiru was a total fake. The real Michiru would have just healed that scratch in a heartbeat. Nana's sharp instincts told her that an enemy must have shapeshifted into Michiru's body, and she started worrying that the real Michiru might be in big trouble. Impressed by Nana's smarts, she admitted that she had taken Michiru's form just to figure out who Nana really was. Then the fake Michiru dropped the bombshell, revealing her true identity as Jim, a former student at the school. He casually suggested they have a little private chat and led her into his cave lair. Once inside, Jim started talking about how he was on the lookout for an ally and how those zombies Yuka summoned were actually his old pals from 5 years ago. Nana started digging deeper, trying to figure out who Jim really was. That's when Jim told her he was the stray cat Kyoya had been feeding milk to all along. Hoping to coax some secrets out of Nana, Jim spilled the beans about what happened 5 years ago. When they first arrived on the island, they noticed their friends were disappearing, so they went all Hunger Games on each other, trying to become the leader. Eventually, they split into factions and started a full-on war across the island. Convinced they were all enemies of humanity, they kept fighting even after the officials ditched them. After everyone else was dead, Jim tried to go home only to find out the government was gunning for him. So he escaped and started watching the island, suspecting the government was trying to wipe out all the talented people. But then, mid-story, Jim started choking. That's when Nana revealed that she had already slipped some poison into his teeth. Classic Nana move, and Jim went to the afterlife. Feeling pretty proud of herself, she decided it was time to report his death to the committee. But before she could even dial, Kyoya snatched her phone, realizing it held all her dirty little secrets. Another trouble just woke up. Surprise! Jim wasn't actually dead. He had taken on Michiru's form yet again and was back to mess with her. He started bragging about how he could use the powers of anything he transformed into, and that's how he survived the previous war, thanks to his overpowered ability. Nana, realizing that Jim was the real enemy of humanity, knew she couldn't let him stick around. But as Jim started wondering who Nana was trying to call, she suddenly noticed that her foot was frozen to the ground. Still, she thought she could outfox him and suggested he transform into her body and use her memories to uncover the whole truth. As Jim started flipping through her memories like they were pages in a diary, Nana managed to free her foot from the ice and bolted out of the cave. She dashed into the forest, hoping to expose Jim's true identity to everyone else. But just as she was getting away, she saw Mugo approaching with a giant fireball in hand. Before she could even react, he unleashed the fireball, nearly turning her into a pile of ashes. But when the chaos finally cooled down, Jim awkwardly apologized for almost turning her into a crispy critter, admitting that his powers go haywire after he shapeshifts into someone else. He told her he wanted to get to know her better and asked her about her childhood, promising to let her live if she said the truth. With no other options on the table, Nana reluctantly started opening up about her past, sharing that her parents were brutally murdered when she was just a kid. She was convinced the killer was one of those so-called enemies of humanity, and the traumatic memory had been haunting her ever since. As she recounted the painful memories, she felt her energy draining and she started to black out. But just before she lost consciousness, Jim told her that the Talentids were being abandoned and left untrained, which meant it was only a matter of time before they lost control of their powers and turned the whole island into a bloodbath. The next morning, Nana woke up in her dorm, disoriented but alive. Michiru, relieved to see her awake, explained that she found Nana's body right outside her room. Nana quickly pieced together that Jim must have been the one who dragged her back. As Michiru began to ask how she managed to keep going despite everything, Nana's childhood memories flashed before her eyes. In a moment of weakness, she let slip that she wasn't afraid of anyone, immediately realizing she'd broken character. To cover her tracks, Nana confided that her parents were killed by the enemies of humanity and that the memories still haunted her. Hearing this, the teary-eyed, gullible Michiru started apologizing profusely for triggering her trauma. But Nana, ever the cold-hearted strategist, knew Michiru was just another pawn. She figured even Michiru probably had a dark side buried somewhere. After all, Michiru had taken out over 150,000 people. Nana had no issues with eliminating her once she figured if she was just another deranged killer. Suddenly, Nana had an idea. She could milk her sob story for future sympathy and support. So she started spinning a tale about how she was responsible for her parents' death, having accidentally left the window open for the enemy. But once she realized Michiru had already forgotten about her earlier slip-up, Nana decided to play the too sick to continue card. That evening during the funerals, the teacher informed Kyoya that classes were canceled until they solved the murder case. But Kyoya, always ready for a fight, demanded to speak with the higher-ups, determined to give them a piece of his mind. Meanwhile, Nana's old memories were bubbling up, threatening to overwhelm her. But she soon noticed that Michiru was starting to look weaker, likely due to her powers slowly sapping her life away. Later, back in her room, as Nana plotted her next move and contemplated her next target, Jean made a sudden appearance, expressing his relief that she was still kicking. Sensing an opportunity, Nana began to probe Jean, wondering why he didn't just transform into Michiru and heal her wounds. Jean revealed that healing someone would be the death of him, literally. Hearing this, Nana realized that Jin's transformations came with severe drawbacks, especially when he tried to mimic a talented spy. But Jean, persistent as ever, wanted to hear the rest of her childhood story, offering to return her phone in exchange for her secrets. At that moment, Nana noticed Michiru loitering outside her room, looking like a lost puppy, and the poor girl confessed that she was terrified of sleeping alone. Sighing, Nana, who had already caught a glimpse of Jean disguised as a cat, decided to let her in. But it didn't take long for Nana to realize that Michiru was really just nosy and wanted to hear more about her childhood, and even the cat seemed keen to know the tea. Thinking she might be able to spin this to her advantage, Nana decided to spill the whole story. As a kid, she was a prodigy in games, even becoming a chess master at the tender age of 4. But one night, her curiosity got the better of her, and she sneaked out to the convenience store, climbing through the window like a mini ninja. When she returned, she knocked out cold, completely forgetting to shut the window. Her parents had always nagged her about tidying up her toys and locking windows, but the next morning she woke up to a nightmare. They were both dead. The cops said the killer had waltzed in through that open window. The guilt gnawed at her for years, and she couldn't shake off the feeling that it was all her fault. As she relived those memories, Michiru took her hand, her warm touch somehow soothing Nana's tormented soul. The next morning, Nana woke up to find that Michiru had stayed up all night like some kind of guardian angel, but their peaceful moment was rudely interrupted when Kyoya barged in. Barely acknowledging Nana's less-than-pleasant morning face, Kyoya asked Michiru if she'd stayed with Nana the whole night. After she confirmed it, he ordered them to follow him, no questions asked. They soon arrived at the boys' dorm, where Kyoya dramatically swung open the door to reveal yet another gruesome murder scene. Nana quickly realized she wasn't the only killer lurking on the island. Kyoya, always the detective, pointed out a stab wound on the dead body and immediately started interrogating everyone about where they were the previous night. Mugo, the resident loudmouth, blurted out that he was with the other losers delivering a motivational speech on the secrets of plot development, because apparently that's a thing. Not willing to let this slide, Kyoya pressed on, demanding to know everyone's talents. Mugo tried to shut him down, saying it wasn't relevant, but Nana nudged him to let Kyoya do his thing. One of the losers tried to impress everyone by mimicking Nana's voice, but Kyoya wasn't buying it. He figured the kid was too feeble to be the killer. Next up was another boy who, instead of showing off, decided to dramatically kneel on the floor. Just as they were starting to wonder if he'd fainted, they realized the bathroom was occupied. The boy then nonchalantly explained that he had done an astral projection into the bathroom because apparently teleporting your soul out of your body is a normal Saturday night activity. Finally, the last loser stepped up, using his hand to magnetize a clock, showing off his ability to turn his body into a human magnet. With the talent parade over, Nana was left puzzled, wondering if the victim had really died the previous night. Kyoya confirmed it, adding that he'd spotted the victim during the mass funeral before he was found dead in his room. Just then, his supposed lover decided to make a grand entrance, introducing herself as Fuko, claiming she was the first one to stumble upon the body. Kyoya, not one to miss a beat, asked why she'd waltzed into his room in the first place. Fuko, trying to play it cool, said it was just a habit of hers. But Kyoya wasn't buying her lame excuse and asked her to spill her talent, which she awkwardly suggested they do outside. Once they were out in the open, Fuko explained that she could harness the atmosphere to launch an attack. Kyoya the skeptic wasn't about to take her word for it and told her to go ahead and show off her powers. On him no less. As the others wisely backed away, Fuko summoned a gust of wind and hurled it at Kyoya, slicing his chest and knocking him to the ground, looking like he might not live to tell the tale. Fuko rushed over, probably to check if she'd overdone it, but Kyoya's wound started to heal right before her eyes. He quickly figured she could have offed Ishii from outside. Just then, the teacher came sprinting towards them breathlessly, announcing that the higher-ups were on the line. Kyoya, ever the grudge-bearer, was thrilled to finally give them a piece of his mind. Later that day, Nana decided to revisit the crime scene, hoping to dig up some dirt on the murder. She soon spotted some moths chilling under the bed, which she found fishy. But her detective moment was interrupted by the eerie silence from Michiru, who'd been unusually quiet all day. Over lunch, Nana began to suspect that Michiru might be getting wise to her involvement in the previous murders. Then, out of nowhere, Michiru started bombarding her with questions about the future, like whether she'd move in with her family after leaving the island. Nana, sensing a trap, slammed her bowl down and told Michiru to quit yapping about her family, right in the middle of her room. As Nana pondered whether Michiru was fishing for her secrets, the teacher showed up with a new uniform, mentioning that Michiru had reported the old one was all torn up. As Nana accepted the fresh threads, it dawned on her that Michiru might have discovered the poison bottle stashed in her old uniform. She figured Michiru must have found it when she changed clothes and likely handed it over to Kyoya. Just as Nana was spiraling into paranoia, El, the guy with annoyingly perfect posture, showed up, wondering if she'd had a tiff with Michiru. He'd noticed Michiru's sad face and tried to strike up a conversation, but Nana wasn't in the mood to spill the beans. However, El had his own agenda. He wanted to grill Fuko and told Nana to tag along. As they were about to leave, the teacher casually mentioned that the request to the higher-ups had gone through and they'd be sending a rep from headquarters. Nana, hearing this, wondered how Kyoya had managed to convince the committee to come to the island. She knew she had to take out as many students as possible before things escalated into all-out war. Inside Fuko's room, Kyoya decided to interrogate her about her whereabouts since the funerals. Fuko claimed she'd spent the night with a friend. Thinking he'd heard enough, Kyoya started to leave, but as they walked down the corridor, he asked Nana if she thought Fuko was telling the truth using her so-called mind-reading ability. Hoping to maintain her cover, Nana acted like she had no clue what Kyoya was talking about. She claimed that she believed Fuko was innocent, arguing that after the funerals wrapped up, Mugo had delivered a marathon 5-hour pep talk to the three losers. Nana reasoned that it was unlikely they would have missed hearing Ishii's screams if the killer had tried to take him out during that time. Therefore, she concluded that Ishii must have met his end after Mugo finished his long-winded talk. With Fuko claiming to have spent the entire night with a friend, Nana was certain that the real perpetrator was someone else entirely. Kyoya, however, wasn't buying her story. He insisted that Ishii had to have been killed during Mugo's pep talk. He had noticed the moths buzzing under Ishii's bed and figured they were attracted by the light. Since Ishii was known for turning in early, Kyoko was convinced that Ishii would have definitely turned off the lights before sleeping. When Nana suggested that the killer might have snuck in through the window while Ishii was asleep, Kyoya shot down the idea. He argued that it would have been impossible for the killer to have turned on the lights without drawing attention. Plus, Ishii had the talent to shrink himself, so Kyoya figured he could have easily hidden in a spot where nobody would notice him. He theorized that Fuko and Ishii must have had a confrontation, with Fuko poisoning Ishii's drink and then slashing his throat before making her escape. Later that night, Nana decided to pay Michiru's room a visit, figuring it might hold some clues. While rummaging through the room, she stumbled upon Michiru's diary and started flipping through its pages. To her surprise, every single entry was dedicated to none other than Nana. Michiru had chronicled every little detail of their time together, portraying Nana as the bravest person she'd ever known and documenting their adventures with almost obsessive admiration. She even desired to buy Nana a gift so that it would make her feel better after losing her parents. At that moment, Jean appeared with the poison and told her that Michiru has always been a good friend all along. With Nana in shock from the realization, she decided to ask why Jean was revealing the truth to her. So he told her that he intends to find the committee that trained her into becoming a serial killer. He told her that he was leaving the island in the meantime and warned her to check Michiru in the shower. At that instant, Nana realized she had been inside for too long, and as she decided to check on her, she discovered that Michiru was unconscious. Realizing she's still breathing, she decided to pull her out of the water, afraid that her plans would be ruined once Michiru was dead. As she laid her inside her room, Nana discovered that she has a high fever. But as she began coughing, she realized that she was extremely dehydrated and thought she wouldn't survive until the morning if she wasn't treated immediately. So that same night, she decided to visit the teacher and demanded for a doctor that would treat Michiru. But he told her that the doctor had left the island as Nana noticed that the other teachers were missing. He told her that they had already gone to the teacher's faculty because even they were scared for their lives. So having no other choice, Nana decided to ask for Kyoya's help. But he told her that he was examining Ishii's corpse to figure out his time of death. As she realized she was running out of time, she decided to ask for medications instead. Once she got it, she started running towards the cafeteria, hoping to get some food for Michiru. After arriving, she realized that the door was locked but broke the glass with a stone. As she tried to open it from the inside, she nicked her finger and realized that she needed to be careful. After returning to the dormitory, Nana began trying to cool off Michiru's body temperature. But Kyoya arrived to examine her body. By the time he was done, he noticed that Michiru's room was scattered and thought that Nana must have definitely been digging through her drawers. The next day, as Kyoya decided to search one of the boys' rooms, Yuji began telling him that he found dead rabbits near the school bushes and that they were killed the same way Ishii was murdered. He thought the killer could be responsible. But Kyoya wondered how the loser managed to listen to Mugu's moronic speech for 5 hours. In Michiru's room, Nana realized that her fever was going down and was glad that the girl would survive after all. At that moment, Fuko entered the room and began asking if Michiru's wound was starting to heal. But Nana thought she was suspicious, seeing as she never told her that Michiru was sick. Even so, Fuko wouldn't give up and offered to watch over Michiru in the meantime, suggesting that Nana get some rest. But Nana told her that her ugly blind face deserves to be laid to eternal rest. Realizing her words were as useless as her face, Fuko decided to leave. But Nana began wondering if Michiru was a witness to Ishii's murder and thought Fuko was seeking the right opportunity to silence her forever. The following day, as she eventually woke up, Michiru revealed that she fell sick after healing a wounded cat, and Nana was glad that her friend didn't end up dying, thinking she needed to rest. Nana told her to lay in bed, offering to serve her tea. But as Michiru noticed her nicked finger, she tried to lick it. But Nana moved away, immediately accidentally throwing off the kettle. As she thought Michiru's health would grow worse, Nana screamed at her to prioritize her own life. Meanwhile, in the forest, Jean noticed a dead rabbit and decided to ask a mysterious shadow why he was killing the animals. The same loser had killed the stray cat that Michiru managed to heal. But as Jean thought it was getting out of hand, he told him to stay away from the forest. At the dormitory, Kyoya came across Rentaro and began asking who Ishii really was. But as he started saying that he was the best dude with the smoothest pickup lines, he drastically turned sad, and Kyoya realized he was hiding his true feelings. In Michiru's room, as they began having lunch, Nana realized she was losing time and thought she could easily kill Fuko and persuade everyone into thinking that she ice-guyed herself. Looking to utilize the rest of her time, she tried to leave, but Michiru asked her to stay, saying that she was afraid of staying alone. However, Nana thought she would be considered a failure once the committee got involved and decided to leave anyway. As she was heading to her room, she thought her master would hate her for developing a bond with a talented and thought she must kill everyone as soon as she could. However, she eventually returned to Michiru's room and decided to ask her why she tried to heal the useless girls who bullied and teased her with the fake love letter. So Michiru told her that everyone deserves to be saved and said that she was willing to show everyone kindness. Just then, Nana remembered a name called Hitomi inside her diary and decided to ask who she was, pretending to have read it in her thoughts. So as Michiru fell for her worthless lie, she told her that Hitomi saved her life and decided to reveal the story. When she was much younger, she got bullied at school for healing her crush and was eventually shunned like a plague. However, one day after healing a puppy, a new girl appeared and thanked her for saving her dog. Her name was Hitomi, and ever since she had become her guardian angel and threatened to beat up all the bullies. And as days passed, they started having lunch and even hanging out after school. But when Hitomi mysteriously vanished, Michiru thought she abandoned her. But one day, Michiru passed out at a hospital, and as Hitomi visited her, she decided to reveal that she has been sick with cancer. While at school, she had pretended to be fine, but had decided to quit after her health grew worse. The revelation made Michiru sad. But after a few weeks, she discovered that Hitomi had passed away and felt useless for being unable to heal her. This was the reason she always wanted to heal everyone, and she was willing to sacrifice her own life for others. At that moment, Nana was completely speechless. But as Michiru wondered if she got possessed by a ghost, she decided to leave immediately. However, once she was outside her room, she broke down on her knees, realizing that Michiru was a kind, innocent soul, and wondered how it was possible that she killed 150,000 people inside her room. Nana's old memories began to return, and she remembered that everyone had blamed her for the death of her parents. Just then, Michiru entered and began telling her to search through her memories. She was convinced that Nana wasn't the cause of her parents' death and told her to try and remember exactly what happened on the day she found them dead. Right then, Nana remembered that she didn't trip in the morning, and Michiru revealed that her parents cleaned her room by the time she woke up and even locked up her window when they were done, since they always reminded her to do that. At that moment, Nana realized she wasn't the reason her parents died after all. But as she tried blaming herself anyway, Michiru hugged her immediately. Right then, Nana realized that she has been worried about her these past few days, and that she was always in deep thought to prove that Nana was innocent. When Michiru began telling her that she intends to buy her a gift, Nana began wondering if she truly deserves her friendship. The next day, as they decided to shop for gifts, Nana noticed a beautiful pen and began wondering if it would make a lovely gift. But as Kyoya appeared behind her, he started saying that he needs her help to capture the killer. He thought it was only a matter of time before the psycho begins to search for a new victim, and thought it could be any of them. At sunset, Nana and Michiru started returning to the dormitory. But as Nana decided to give her the pen, Michiru told her that she also bought her a gift. So as Nana slept that night, she cuddled the gift and was excited about her new friendship. But Jean appeared at her window when Nana wondered why he returned to the island. He began telling her that Michiru is in danger, having been lured towards the sea by the killer. Realizing her first real friend was about to die, Nana hurried out immediately. But after arriving outside, she realized that she was better off asking for Kyoya's support. Meanwhile, in the forest, an invisible hand sliced Michiru across the face. But when she wondered who it was, the invisible man told her that he came to kill her. At the same time, Nana was running towards the sea. But as her master called her at that moment, asking about whom she intends to kill next, Nana realized she was screwed. However, she managed to pretend that she was on the hunt for another victim. And after the call was over, she began thinking that she should abandon Michiru, since she was another talented she needed to kill eventually anyway. In the forest, Michiru was running for her life but was eventually shoved towards the cottage. However, she thought that Nana would come to save her. But the invisible man thought that she would never do that, since she was always lying, and decided to end her life. After the killer pulled out the knife, Nana realized he was Rentaro and revealed that he must have slipped out of his body when he murdered Ishii in the same way. As Rentaro returned, Nana managed to protect Michiru once more and told her to run away once she successfully distracts him. So as he tried to end her this time, she managed to hold the knife, but it pierced her shoulder. Even so, she decided to hold it with all her strength and screamed at Michiru to run away. However, when Michiru wanted to stay for her friend, she began screaming at her to go away, telling her that she's never thought of her as a friend and has only been using her as a useful dog, saying she's always hated her. Hearing these words, Michiru began to cry before running off into the forests. However, Nana was glad to have successfully made her run away. But as Rentaro decided to kill her, he felt his physical body was being strangled, and Nana was glad that Kyoya eventually found his body. At the same time, Kyoya was squeezing the life out of him, and as his soul returned into his body, he shoved him to the floor. Kyoya began telling him that he searched the entire school for his body, as he remembered that Nana had actually revealed everything, even suggesting he finds his body. And after he noticed that she was really worried about Michiru's safety, he had agreed with her plan but wondered if he would ever uncover Nana's own crimes. At the cabin, Nana laid unconscious on the ground, having been brutally wounded by Rentaro's knife. And as she realized that her soul was about to leave her body, all her previous murders began flashing across her mind. She thought she deserved to die and was glad that she would be reunited with her parents' souls. However, as she grew sad that she would lose her newfound friendship, she realized that Michiru had returned to her side and was sad to see her slipping away. Somehow Nana managed to recover, and as she stood on the shore, she realized she was lucky to have been revived. However, as she decided to check Michiru's body, she discovered that her only friend had sacrificed herself for Nana to keep living. The memories of their time together began flashing across her mind, and as Nana began to cry, the only thing she could scream was the word no repeatedly. This was it for today. See you next time. Watch other similar videos and complete your anime wishlist.